Okay, thank you very, very much, Eefje and Monalisa. A very interesting presentation on preliminary research results, adding to the body of research information that we have, and also supporting Alex's work as well. Yeah, so the floor is open for contributions, questions, additions to both Eefje and Monalisa. I'm looking. Michael, I think that's you where we can see the ceiling. Is that correct? Oh, yeah. Welcome. You're muted, but never mind.
I thought my video is out, sorry.
Okay, cool. Cool, good that you could participate. Cool, we have Tina already raising her hand. Please, Tina, come along.
Yeah, if I may start. Yeah, thanks to you both. I found it really interesting, like the research question already, and then your findings. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on, like, I mean, you showed that there are patterns in what they offer, and basically I had the feeling like they more or less, a bit exaggerated, offer the same, you know, and certain things are not covered. And then you explained the rationale why they chose to offer what they offered, but I'm still struggling. Why didn't they offer other things? You know, what I'm heading to? Like, I imagine like you have these villages where 5 actors go into, and they all offer the same services. And then not only that some villages are not catered for, but also other services which farmers need don't get offered. So did they explain a little bit more on that? Why and how?
Okay, do you maybe if before you answer that, I would like to add a question, because that adds to what Tina was saying. When you presented, Monalisa, when you presented that table, I was wondering why are farmer field days so unpopular? Maybe you can add an answer to that, to Tina's question.
Yeah. So maybe let's start with that we, of course, we didn't, we had interviews, open interviews. So we didn't present this different type of incentives and ask which ones did you implement. Huh? So we really asked openly, what did you implement? And only afterwards now we categorize them, so that and then we also didn't ask the actors to only speak of one specific project that they worked in, but more across the board of their activities. And however, we used the categorization of different incentives that Alex had already developed before, also based on literature, which are the most frequent, basically, incentives within our definition of incentive. They're just, honestly, different authors use different definitions, and then sometimes even regulations become incentives, and others then don't count capacity building under incentives. So, but this was our definition. And based on our, what I can say is based on our analysis, we only added to what Alex had already researched with the land access. So it really came up very prominent within many different interviews that they're actively supporting specific groups, youth and women mainly, to get access to land as an incentive for an uptake of sustainable land management practices. Otherwise, we had our scheme of incentives and now looked at how much do they actually appear, and some maybe appeared less, and the yellow ones is that they're mentioned, but not necessarily as something that they as actor implement themselves. I don't know if it explains, but yeah, a bit maybe.
Yeah, I think we can probably catch up later on in the discussion and go deeper into this one. Michael, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have two comments, which are kind also of a question. The first one is a comment, is really only comment. If you compare private sector and public sector, of course, the rationales for intervening and the means, the capacities to intervene are, and the instruments available to them are very different. So directly comparing them, for example, public sector can spend without earning money. Private sector, for the private sector, doesn't make sense to spend more than the expected revenue. They want to make a profit. However, there are, and for NGOs, it's again, so the direct comparison of the instruments across sectors without also looking at what is in their at their hand to use doesn't really make sense. No? There are regulatory things which the private sector simply cannot do, and there are financial things which the private sector should not do if it sticks to its profit earning logic. That is the first one. So I would be a little bit careful to directly compare across all three sectors who, as I say, have a different rationale and different capacities and needs at their hand. The second one is more of a question. I realized that the hypothesis behind their activities, behind their rationales, were very different, very different. One say farmers know and they do if it is profitable. So then it is. The other say they need, and the other extremists, they need awareness. They are not aware of it. And the third one in between is they are aware, but it takes a long time. So we need. So these are three very different rationales when it comes to the logic, the hypothesis, the basic hypothesis behind it. I would find it very interesting to understand where does their evidence come from. For example, to say farmers do not know, or farmers do not act, although they know, or farmers without very immediate things will not act. I give just one example. For example, you mentioned the land governance, and you remember we had here already one colloquium on land governance and sustainability, and where we didn't find a clear answer as to whether land governance really generally supports sustainability of land use. We had our meeting, the meeting of Declaré in Witzenhausen a month ago. And there some of the researchers even said, we have observed practices where land ownership leads to unsustainable activities. For example, monocultures in annual crops, monocultures in perennial crops, and so on. My example is always, if ownership of land would be really the key lever to improve land use sustainability, then in Germany, or in most of our industrial countries, we wouldn't have a problem with sustainability because the ownership is very often very secure. So again here, what is the evidence behind these different hypotheses? Have you also asked a little bit around that? Because as it is now, it is more a kind of belief system which is behind the activities that these actors implement. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, I would first want to respond to your first comment, because it is exactly the idea of the research, or let's say the starting point of the research, that this is in much of the literature on incentive, this is what's being done. Incentives are being discussed without recognizing that there are different type of actors with different type of capacities, with different roles who are implementing them, that independent from this, there's being searched for the most effective incentive. So we're trying to and then of course there are very obvious differences that we can all tell just right now without conducting any interviews, but the idea is to also show this with these more in-depth interviews, and then to dig also deeper, of course, into what kind of resources do these different actors have, and also how they. So one thing that we also questions more is how they then link up with one another. So also the comment that you said you can't look at it without looking at their capacities. This is exactly what we'll look at by answering the third and the fourth research questions. How do they see their role and responsibilities? How did they link up also with the other actors? And then what are their capacities, and how can these also be linked to the type of incentives and the type of rationale they put forward? Where does the evidence come from? I didn't particularly ask a question in that direction. But I think we do have quite a lot of rich explanation on how they come to this reasoning. So I think we can dive a little bit deeper also in why they stick to this rationale rather than to another rationale, and maybe we can also see patterns there that certain actors with certain capacities also tend to follow a certain logic, or that could be something that we can dive a bit deeper into.
Before I give Brigitte the word, did you also ask them about barriers to implementing the incentives that they wanted to? Because those would be some of these maybe financial barriers. If we had more money, we could have done blah, blah, but we couldn't. Is that something that you might find in your data when you look into the research questions?
Well, I really tried to have them talk longer about their reasoning. So some also come up with, of course, lack of resources to provide inputs for a longer term. Or yes, within this project, we could do it because we had the funding from that other actor. But within other projects, we need to limit ourselves. And so, yes, this also comes up. This kind of negative rationales of why certain incentives are not being implemented.
That might answer also my question about the farmer field days, because we all do farmer field days all the time, but it seems maybe they're very expensive, so maybe nobody did it really. Okay, Brigitte, please.
Okay, thank you, Eefje. And Monalisa, my question is in regard to the learning efforts. You know, for different innovations, we have first, second, or third loop learning efforts necessary, and particularly in sustainable land management, I think contains quite a lot of second or third loop learning, where you even change the frame and you need to learn about different cause-effect relationships. And all this makes those innovations so context-specific. So even you can't in a way transfer them from here to there, but they need then always to be adapted to the particular conditions. So there is then a lot of effort on this place-specific learning. And I was wondering whether somehow in the study this is covered, and and then how, because also back to the farmer field days, you can't get this knowledge in a farmer field day, of course, and also not in a farmer field school, not easily, at least not if it is not organized in a way that it really takes up the contextual conditions.
Okay. Whom of you want to respond to that?
Sorry, we had a little break, but I think I got Brigitte's question. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because we had a little internet problem. That's why I wasn't sure whether. Yeah, I think this is. So we asked why twice in the interview. I asked the why twice. Why do you implement these practices? And why do you use these incentives? So particularly under why do you implement these practices, they elaborated more on how they also develop the practices, or why they believe this practices is relevant for the context, or so I think that aspect of how have these practices been developed and adapted to the contexts comes up more. Yes, I don't know if this suffices for, or yeah.
No, it's fine. I only thought it's good to consider this.
Yeah, it's something. So there's quite some rich data, some that different approaches on. I think under this question, like why do you promote these particular practices? There are quite some storylines where they explain how they develop them together within a specific context, or whereas others are just mentioning, oh, we do this and that and that and everywhere. But then also, but under that question, people dived into explaining how they adapted it to the context or not. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Monalisa and Eefje, for presentation. I'm not in the field, but in our group now, there's one person, actually student of us, working very detailed on the same topic. He's maybe too shy to talk now. He also working on the ecological practices in Niger, and he also collected all the information from the past and until now, and what practices have present there, and what is effective and what not effective. But I don't know if he have also the incentive, also including that in. So my question would be, do you also look at all the practices implemented from the past to nowadays, or is only the existing one what is ongoing in the region?
Well, we started the interviews basically asking what sustainable land management practice they are currently promoting.
Only the current one.
Yeah.
So you will not look at the past. That's what
I mean,
was
no,
before, or how long is, they are practicing it now, for how long, or only a short period or long period?
Yeah, so since, of course, you have limited time now to conduct an interview, and we had to have our focus. So we of course got them to talk about what practices we're incentivizing, but it wasn't our major focus to now know what are the practices, whether they've been effective or not. There are other, I think maybe your colleague, other researchers that are focusing on that question. And of course, it would be interesting now to link it again to the effectiveness of the incentives and the practices, but as the others are limited on not really looking at the implementers, we are limited at not really following the full outcome chain.
I just wanted to link Abdul Kader. I think you are listening, so maybe you can contact Eefje again for also Monalisa, because he's working on in Niger is very detailed on the current practice, also in the past as well. And we wanted to see, for example, some have also visible, let's say, impact to the greenness of the area, for example, from remote sensing point of view. I think Monalisa will understand perfectly what I'm talking about. And thus it could be also interesting to link and maybe later on compare the outcome between two study areas. That could be also interesting.
Yes, I would like to take Abdul Kader now. Tina, if you just wait for a moment, because that links very well. Abdul Kader, please. The floor is yours. We can't hear you. I'm not sure your microphone works.
I'm Abdul Kader.
There we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working
Welcome.
on agroecological practice in Niger. We try to see the impact of this agroecological practice in the past and now, because the NGO began to implementation this practice since 1985, 45 years now. And until now, the people continue to practice some practice, and they remove some practice because they see the importance of some practice, and somewhat practice which is not important, the people remove it. And we can see the practice is different from one region to another one because the geographical context is not the same. It's not the same. That we try to see now in the Marathi region, which is the best practice that the people doing now, and why is the reason of this. That we I also did the farmer perception of this practice, and also now we try to see the impact use remote sensing to see which provide more regreening in the soil, because we see now the people say soil is regreening, that we want to see if is rainfall is the main factor of this regreening or is the practice, agrological practice. And through our result, we see that yes, rainfall and the practice have a significant effect of this regreening, but we see that the agrological practice have more effect than rainfall. Because if there are no agrological practice, when it is rainfall fall, that is going without retaining. But when we did the agrological practice, we have the retaining or retention of this immediate. Sorry for my English, it's not good. And this when the rainfall is retention, that we can see the effect is more important than when there are no practice. Yeah. Thank you so much. My English is not good.
Maybe I would like to respond, because an interesting question that also comes up also from our analysis and other literature on incentives, reviews of the effectiveness of incentives, is whether incentives are effective at all, or whether it really comes down to having the right practice at the right place. And this is also a little bit what comes up within the interviews, on the one hand through how they have developed the practices and why they promote those specific ones, and also in this rationale, for example, that they say, no, you need to have practices that have also short-term benefits, or you need to have practices that are like this and that. So yeah, this idea of there is an adoption barrier and incentives need to be implemented. I think even this hypothesis, we can look at it critically through this analysis.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks very much. Also, thank you, Abdulkader, for your additional information. What I suggest is maybe you can share your email contacts that you can continue exchanging your views.
Okay.
Including Alex also, I think, because Alex is working on that as well. Cool. Thank you. Tina, you had your hand up. Do you still want to say something?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I actually I want to respond a little bit to Michael's comment, asking you, Michael, or adding a thought on that when you said you think you can't really compare the different actors. In a way, I agree, but I see a lot of beauty actually in the work of Eefje and Monalisa. When I looked at this table, incentives versus actors, I found that actually really cool to see who's investing in what and why are exactly structurally so different actors like companies doing exactly the same as NGOs or local governments. And then I was wondering rather if we like thinking of research ahead, whether that wouldn't be an interesting question, also thinking around implementation and scaling, how these different actors could, based on the differences and different strengths, why they don't use more their strengths in certain areas, cooperate. So one is more working with farm inputs and the other one is, I don't know, coordinating extension where they have more, you know, competitive advantage, so to say. So I thought this could be also a way forward for new research and also optimization of the whole incentive system, which we haven't really thought about yet. So I when I looked at that, that was like a new idea coming up. So I want to hear your opinion, Michael, but also from Eefje, Monalisa, please also share your thoughts. You have been thinking so much already around these questions. Yeah.
Okay, we have 4 minutes left today, so who wants to take first stab on Tina's suggestion for some new research looking into the diversity of incentives?
Yeah, let me very briefly. I want to leave more room to Eefje to the team to reply. When it comes, for example, for instruments which are at the disposition of all the actors, for example, farmer field schools, trials, farmer field days, and so on, then it's interesting to see what people are believing to be effective, and then you can compare. No? If it is about regulatory things, a comparison does not really make sense because private sector and NGOs do not have regulatory instruments, incentive instruments at hand. So they simply do not dispose of regulatory power. That's so when you compare instruments, incentives.
But we left out completely the regulatory instruments. We don't consider them to be incentives.
Sorry, if you look at your first large table,
it would be only land access that could count as regulatory, but the rest are also.
It was more like advocacy, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah, I don't see it now. Yeah, that would be helpful.
If you just go into full screen mode, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, land access, financial support, for example, does it make sense to say for a private sector to provide financial support when in the end they want to get money out of something? So if private sector does not give financial support, what does that mean? Is it that they do not believe in that instrument, or is it simply that it is in contradiction to their way of activities? No? It's like asking a bank to give financial support or an NGO to give financial support. I mean, I wouldn't even hypothesize that the bank would give financial support. Let's say for payment for ecosystem service, same thing. Payment for ecosystem services. I mean, you can have the private sector as a vehicle to provide this, but the payment for ecosystem services must come from somebody who has financial means for that, and that is usually not a private actor, except in very few areas like water bodies, for example, where a water provider profits from the increased water flow, for example. But in most cases, a private sector actor cannot profit from ecosystem services, except, as I said, with a very few. Let's say the farmer field days, yes. Agribusiness linkages.
Michael, can I ask you to give Eefje
for me not an incentive type at all mechanization, but I give the thought to Eefje.
Yeah,
I just want to say these options, incentive types, do not have to follow the same logic for all actors. That was my point, and I would seeing this table insist that this not, for some of them, it's not useful to compare it across actors. Okay.
Okay, thank you for your input, Michael. Maybe Eefje, do you want to say, or Monalisa, you want to say a couple of concluding words, but we do have to close fairly soon.
Yes, one point I'm really also thinking about is what we also observed when we were doing the analysis at now, this, of course, the different type of actors have or could have the rationale or the main reason why they are doing it. But at the same time, also we look at the ones, the farmers, what is their need? So that is also a point that they were bringing to say they also now look at the different smallholder farmers and what need do they have, and now they try to also respond or offering in a few of the interviews. They were also mentioning that, whereby they were saying, for instance, they are offering, let's say they go to the farmers and they see that the farmers already have certain inputs, or rather when they talk about this organic fertilizers that they are making using already the resources that are there. So some of these actors now can also really is supporting or implementing based on the need of the farmers. So that's just a point that I also noticed when we were going through the analysis.
Cool. Thank you so much. Eefje, do you want to add anything to what Monalisa just said?
No, I just find it very interesting to have Michael's and Tina's contribution also contradicting each other a bit. And I do see the tension also that, of course, we're doing this qualitative research and then some things look so obvious, but then I think I feel like as we are delving deeper into it, it also brings out some less obvious things. And I think it's just interesting to visualize it with the different citations and yeah, to really bring it out clearly and not just as some logic we all have in the back of our head. And yeah, that's what I wanted to bring.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. And I'm sure that Monalisa and Eefje will take the contributions and suggestions with you while you continue your analysis. And you still have a couple of research questions to answer, keeping in mind that this was preliminary information put together within a short time. Thank you very much again for doing that, and everybody who listened today for being here and for your contributions. Thanks, Eefje. Thanks, Monalisa.